I recently heard a story of a young man who came out of a coma after close to 15 years. And one of the first responses that somebody had to that was, tell him who the president is. Imagine having gone into a coma in 2010, emerging in 2025, and finding out that the host of The Apprentice has is in his second term as the US president, and then learning about all the things that he has done. I mean, it's the shock would be hard to imagine to process. I remember in the 1985 film Back to the Future, which has just turned 40, there's this great scene where Marty McFly has gone back from 1985 to 1955, and he tells somebody in 1955 that Ronald Reagan is the president of the United States. And of course, that makes them laugh because Ronald Reagan in 1955 is a B grade actor. Nobody would have thought he'd become president. Well, Donald Trump is altogether another order, of course. One of the challenges with Donald Trump has always been that people become inured, just hardened to all of the information about him. And in particular, what a completely morally depraved sexual libertine he is. And that is, of course, most overtly obvious when it comes to evangelicals who continue to support him at Caucasian white evangelicals in particular at rates of 75, 80%, and people like Franklin Graham who will never have a bad word to say about Donald Trump. It's just sickening. Well, this week, this issue about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and the sexual assault of children has come up once again. And I think we just need to put a spotlight on it because it's so easy for these things just to be lost in the incredible, endless cesspool of news that is produced by this man. And I thought this tweet yesterday from Sarah Longwell from The Bulwark really summarized the shocking situation that we're in well. She said, let's break this down. The top law enforcement agent in the United States of America, that is Pam Bondi, said that she had on her desk a list of the world's most powerful people who were having sex with minors. That is true. That's what she said. She's now trying to claim she never said that. We have the tape. She said that. Then the president's top advisor and richest man in the world, Elon Musk, says President Trump is on the list. The attorney general now says the list does not exist and was never on her desk. No more questions, please. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have sympathy at this point with the conspiracy theorists who've long believed that Epstein was killed in prison and that there is this long list of powerful people around the world who would be indicted by a list of from the flight logs and from visits on the island of Epstein's island. And so there's this conspiracy to keep it quiet. And I have a lot of sympathy with that for several reasons. One of them is the link to Donald Trump. Now, let's just note at the outset, Elon Musk is not a great witness. He's got a lot of credibility problems. Back in 2018, we have this infamous case where there were these children trapped in a cave in Thailand, and there was a British expatriate living in Thailand who was trying to help and did help with rescuing the children. Elon Musk was proposing getting a mini sub in, and of course, this is part of Elon Musk's long history of being a bit of a carnival barker, over promising and under delivering. And this gentleman who was helping with the rescue of the children called it out and said that by proposing to get a mini sub into the cave, Elon Musk was just looking for publicity. Elon Musk responded to him on Twitter by saying, sorry, pedo guy, you really did ask for it. So he accuses this British expatriate living in Thailand of being a pedophile on no evidence, simply because he's a man, grown man living in Thailand. That resulted in a lawsuit and a settlement. bottom line is, I mean, Elon Musk said in his defense that he was not literally saying he's a pedophile. Regardless, he made it and what certainly looks to me like an accusation against him. And that is the kind of thing that goes to his credibility, that he will just throw out allegations against people. Having said that, I do think that you could argue that his wording here is kind of just a flippant insult. There is some credibility to that as a defense. I don't think it is an overall defense, but it's not exactly the same thing. Sorry, pedo guy. It could just be seen as a diss. A little different when you say Donald Trump is on the list of Epstein. So what I wanted to do is to look at some of the evidence that links Donald Trump to Epstein and to sexual interest in minors. In 2017, Michael Wolff, a well-known biographer, interviewed Jeffrey Epstein when he was still alive, obviously. And Epstein said, among other things, I was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. Now, is that overstatement? Maybe. Were they very close throughout the 1990s into the early 2000s? Yes. And there's a lot of evidence for that. So closest friend, I don't know, but very good friends. And here's an example. Donald Trump flew on Epstein's plane, which was called the Lolita Express. You probably know that Lolita is a reference to an infamous book about a pedophile who rapes a child. That was the name of his airplane. Would you fly on an airplane called the Lolita Express? And Trump flew on this at least 7 times, 7 times that we know of in the flight logs. Donald Trump in turn commented on Epstein, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. What does that mean? On the younger side. Donald Trump certainly knew, I believe, that Epstein was a pedophile. And I mean, there's a lot here that is very concerning, right? Why are you hanging out with a person who's known for liking, quote, younger women? Nice euphemism there. Epstein shared all sorts of information about Trump, which you can go back to the 2017 Michael Wolff interview if you want to read about that, but it's very disturbing in terms of Trump's sexual libertine attitudes. We do know this, I mean, among other things, when Donald Trump's wife was home with their newborn in 2005, he was having sex with a porn star or adult film actress. We know that. We know that he paid her off, Stormy Daniels, in 2015 to win the election. Um, yeah, so mm, there's all these pictures. These pictures going back to the 1990s of Donald Trump with his teen pubescent daughter in very provocative poses. I mean, these are odd pictures. I would never have taken pictures like this with my daughter. They're a little too intimate. They're a little too, there's an erotic side to it, which is very disturbing, particularly when you know this man's history. And when you look at these with contemporaneous comments he made about his daughter, as well as comments he made later about his daughter. So, for example, Brooke Antoinette Mahalian, I'm not going to pronounce it. Okay, Brooke was a former Miss Universe, and she reported that when um, Ivanka was 16 years old, in 1997, she was hosting the Miss Teen USA pageant, and Trump turned to this Miss Universe and said, don't you think my daughter's hot? She's hot, right? So he's thinking about his daughter in sexualized terms as being hot when she's 16. In 2006, when Trump is what, about in his 50s, his daughter's mid 20s, he says, if oh, I've said if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. In another interview on The View, Donald Trump said that, and this was with Ivanka sitting beside him, that the one thing they share in common is sex, something in that effect. Just absolutely grotesque comments. He also described Ivanka as a piece of ass in an interview. I can give many more examples. But we have here both Donald Trump so expressing sexual interest. Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, oh, I forgot. Okay, the one thing I forgot to put on here, but I'm just gonna I'll tell you about it. Is when he was hosting the Miss Teen USA pageant, he was also known and reported to have gone into the dressing room where girls as young as 15 were in various states of nakedness, and Trump boasted about coming in and surprising them in order to see them naked. 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds naked. And that's the Miss Teen, that's when he was running the Miss Teen USA pageant. So he clearly had interest in and boasted about viewing girls, teenagers, naked, about having sexual interest in teenagers, including his own daughter. We also know, of course, that he was found liable to have engaged in sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll. And the judge said that, so in the findings, that Donald Trump had forcibly inserted his fingers into her genitals. And the judge also said that what Donald Trump was found to have done against E. Jean Carroll met the colloquial definition of rape, even though it didn't meet the legal definition of rape in the state of New York. And we also never forget the Access Hollywood recording from 2005, where Trump boasted about physically assaulting women, grabbing them by their genitals. It's so easy, all of these things to, there's this expression I've heard time and again. It's all baked in, right? We're sort of over that. This kind of stuff should never be quote unquote baked in. You have a president of the United States who is a serial philanderer. One of the things that Jeffrey Epstein boasted about is that Donald Trump loved to cuckold his good friends. In other words, he loved to have sex with the wives of his good friends. That gave him a special satisfaction. I believe Epstein on that. I don't think he was making that up. Donald Trump is somebody who has never had any sexual boundaries. That's the bottom line. Never had any sexual boundaries. I think there's evidence the moment a child is in a pubescent stage, Donald Trump, if they're would be conventionally considered physically attractive, Donald Trump probably has a sexual interest in them. I mean, again, look at the Miss Teen USA pageant. Is he linked then? And we know that he's best friends was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. What is going on with Epstein, with this list, with Pam Bondi, with Donald Trump, with Elon Musk? I don't know. I don't know if there's fire where there's smoke, right? But there's a lot of smoke. This is extraordinary what we're looking at. And you should never, again, don't ever become inured to this. Look at the pattern of evidence. And I'll just say this. Would you trust this man, knowing what you know about him, knowing what is on the public record, knowing what he's admitted to? Would you trust him with your daughter? And that's the president of the United States.